All right, now that we have our multicam set up, the next thing we're going to do is just start organizing and start working with our footage. So now that we have everything named, so we have the Sean and Chris multi-view, Chris and Sean Chris cam. Now that we know everything where it's at, we fixed a little audio issue. We're just going to drag the nested clip into the media so it's organized and there's nothing inside of the main bin that it's not supposed to be there. So now that I have all my media inside of the media page, the next thing that we can do is we can go ahead and we can turn this. We're going to go to properties, right click. We're going to go to modify audio channels. Now we're going to do new sequence from clip.
For me, so I appreciate that. Just allowed me to see what.
So now, like I said, the big goal is to stay organized and to keep the timeline looking clean. So now you can tell that we have, because of the other timelines in multi, we have all these different tracks that we're not using. So an easy way to clean this up is to just right click, delete tracks, click on delete audio and video tracks that we're not using. Perfect. So now we have very clean one track video with both of the audios. So you might be asking, where's the other cams? So one thing you want to do is click that off, make sure that we are on the playback on the fourth or the lowest that you can go. If you're using proxies, even better. But what you're going to do is here, you're gonna be able to see both of the interviews. So one thing that we can do while we're doing the first pass is I like to just have it on the multi for where you can see both of them. I'll come in here, just clean this up a bit.
Notes. Oh shoot, who's calling me? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
I need to turn this on do not disturb. God. Did you hear that, by the way?
I could not at all.
Okay.
So that's
Sleep. Okay. Okay. So we're here because I want to talk about Sean.
So here's gonna be the starting point. Gonna clean that up.
A kind of a master class for
So I always like starting the video on one main camera.
We're here because I want to talk about Sean's second edition of his book, YouTube Secrets, which we'll share links in the show notes. So be sure you check that out in case you're curious. The approach today is to really have a kind of a master class for entrepreneurs who have either dabbled with YouTube or thinking about getting into YouTube or thinking, is this a good strategy for me? Is this a platform I want to invest money and time and energy? I can't think of a better person to share insights on this because I think, Sean, your primary thing is YouTube, right? Like you love YouTube, you talk about YouTube, you teach people how to grow on YouTube. So why don't we take it from there? And
So one thing here that you see is that what you never want to do is you want to make sure that when you're making the cut that you're not cutting when somebody is speaking. So for here, I was waiting for that silence or the in between the word for me to actually make the cut into the other camera.
So why don't we take it from there? And in case you missed the first episode.
And then another thing too is we're looking for reactions, right? So here's when he talks about Sean and when Sean's introduced. So that's when I'm introducing Sean into the video.
In case you missed the first episode, Sean, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, Chris, thanks so much for having me back. Today, Think Media is the company I run. We have 20 W-2 employees and 10 contractors, and we're on a mission to help people figure out how to create video. So we do a lot of camera, tech, live streaming, build your equipment set up to create content, and then the strategy side. And our focus is YouTube because I believe that YouTube is the most highly leveraged platform. And we can get into that, but with all of where
and the other things too is that you're also going to be refreshing the view. We'll call this the view. Between every 15 to 25 seconds, that camera should be changing. Even better if it's even faster. And of course, you're going to make sure that it's appropriate. You don't want to just be cutting back and forth for no reason. But if as a viewer, you're going to make sure that we're keeping their attention. So for here, I was just going, switching back between the main camera and wide as Chris is either doing a reaction or acknowledging. And those are things that you want to get. So like if Sean is saying something that's very powerful and Chris is like, oh, agreeing with that, we want to get that reaction, and that's when we would cut into the two camera like that. You can see Sean and you can see Chris speaking. And now somebody's saying something powerful, you always want to make sure that the camera is on the person that's speaking, saying something powerful. If the other person is going to be speaking or going to be introduced, you want to switch to kind of like how I did here with let's go back to this part.
Teach people how to grow on YouTube. So why don't we take it from
So like, here's an example, right? Chris is talking, we're seeing him talk about this, and he's about to introduce Sean, and then Sean's going to speak. So what do? I let Chris talk. I introduce Sean in a dual cam, and then I cut to Sean in a single cam.
of YouTube? You talk about YouTube. You teach people how to grow on YouTube. So why don't we take it from there? And in case you missed the first episode, Sean, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, Chris, thanks so much for having me.
And one thing, this is just the beginning part, so I don't do too much cleaning up of the dialogue and things like that. But here's an example of things that you're going to be looking at. So there was a weird gap here.
Your backstory.
Yeah.
We don't need that. So what we're going to do, we're going to come in here. We're going to head and cut. Let's go and move that there. Now if I came here and hit Q, it will bring it to that last cut.
Backstory.
Yeah, Chris, thanks so much for having me back.
A lot cleaner, right? So those are the things that throughout the edit, like I said, this is the first round. With the first round, I'm really just getting the different shots. I'm not going in and cleaning up anything just yet. So you're going to do this from the beginning of the video all the way through, switching between the main speaker, the guests, dual cams, and when they're about to introduce somebody. Another great way to look at this is that when you see the little pockets in between, it usually means that somebody else is going to talk or there's a break there.
Itself and its transformational power. I got into video in 2003 volunteering for my local church. The first YouTube channel that I started was for
So here's an example, right? So let's go right here.
the first YouTube channel that I started was for this church, an hour north of 2003 volunteering for my local church. The first YouTube channel that I started was for this church, an hour north of Seattle, small town. 2007.
All right, great example here, right? We have a dual cam on both of them, and we see Chris or hit his ear or move his headphone, whatever you might look at it. That itself, we also make sure that our client's looking good. So I would actually go back and just make sure that the camera, either I need to cut away from Chris before then, or I'll just keep the camera on Sean the whole time.
First YouTube channel that I started was for this church, an hour north of Seattle, small town. 2007, we started a YouTube channel for the church and a vlog for the pastor, which is way ahead of time. I mean, this was 2 years after YouTube started. 15-minute upload limits, no custom thumbnails, totally different platform, the technological infrastructure of it. So I've been in video, social, and YouTube for a long time. Eventually started a free.
Same thing, like you're seeing Chris doing little nods, and those are the things that you want to look for.